Hey guys, Ricky Widmer here from Most Valuable Podcast. You're about to listen to a little bit of our primetime podcast that we recorded this week. Make sure to go to Blog Talk Radio / Most Valuable Podcast for our full-length podcast that you can go ahead and download. I hope you enjoy it. I know me and Brandon did recording it. But Brandon, we got to move on into our final topic, and what I thought we'd do for the podcast here to kind of wrap things up is I saw something on ESPN where they're like, oh, the SEC West or the SEC East, who are some teams that need to prove themselves? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about any individual conference. So we are just going to wrap up the show by talking about some football teams, some college football teams this year that really need to prove themselves in 2017. They really need a big year. They need to prove themselves. I'm going to start with you. Give me one team that you think needs to prove themselves in 2017.
Well, I think that some people may listen to this and go, what are you talking about, prove themselves? But hear me out. The Nittany Lions averaged 9.3 yards per pass attempt last season, best in the Big Ten, 10th in the FBS. Trace McSorley was definitely able to stretch the field and make plays last season. You have offensive coordinator Joe Moorhead's really good mix of run and pass, and then you have the threat, obviously, of Saquon Barkley running the football. Hard to defend. The Penn State Nittany Lions, a team that should have gone to the playoff last season and did not, needs to follow that up with a very good 2017 to prove that they were not just a one and done. They were we're just getting started. And I think that the Nittany Lions can do that this season, and I'm expecting a big season out of them. But that's also why I say a team that needs to prove themselves, because they need to prove to everybody else out there in college football.
Talk is cheap.
That, guess what? You screwed us last season, and we played so well. You're not going to be able to screw us this year, because we're just going to come back and we're going to be great.
Yeah, and I mean, I can see that mainly because it's the fact that you complain, and I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about the collective view of Penn State. They complain so much about how they're not in the playoff. You cannot complain that much and then lay an egg this season. You cannot have a clunker, that's one of my favorite words, a clunker of a season this year. If you are Penn State, you have to. I kind of think that out of the three, Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan, the pressure might be more on Penn State than the other two. And that might be hard, because one of the teams that I was going to say, and I was hoping you would lead with Penn State, because one team that I think needs to prove themselves is Michigan. Funny how the two teams opposite of Ohio State there in the Big Ten Beast need to prove themselves this year. Penn State, because, like you said, they complained so much about not being in the playoff. Well, you got to buck up or shut up, baby. That's what they got to do. Talk is totally cheap. You got to come and you got to back up that talk this year. For Michigan, it's one of those things where I kind of look at it and go, okay, last season, a lot of people were kind of throwing Harbaugh under the bus a little bit. Not under the bus like, get him out of town, he should be out of here. No, he doesn't coach in Chicago, because that's only what Chicago fans do after one season where you lose to your biggest rival. But one of the things that kind of threw him under the bus was there were some people that thought he lost the game for Michigan in that Ohio game with how there was one call on the field. He reacted one way. There was a penalty for his team. And people were like, you can't do that. You got to be more composed as the head coach. I think that this Michigan team needs to prove themselves, because it's one of those things where there were a lot of people putting a lot of stock into what he was going to do with this Michigan team. And you already have 2 years of 10-3 seasons, 6-3, 7-2, respectively, for the two in the conference. You finished third in the East both years, and you win the Citrus Bowl, lose the Orange Bowl. I think Michigan needs to make the playoffs this year. However, I know that I said that Penn State has more pressure. That's because of all their complaining. Michigan's not that far behind them, because in year 3, it's one of those things where you kind of look at Jim Harbaugh, and I think the questions it won't be serious questions, but there will be some people that if he doesn't make the college football playoff this year, people will either A, start to ask, will Jim Harbaugh ever win a national championship at Michigan or ever make the playoff at Michigan? Or the rumors or the talk might start coming up louder of, there's some head coaching jobs in the NFL that are coming up. They're coming up. They could be enticing to Jim Harbaugh. And in order to quash and kind of silence all that, you got to make the playoff this year. However, Penn State's in the same boat. They got to make the playoffs as well. But it's kind of hard. I want to say Penn State has more pressure because, like I said, they complained about it. But I don't know if I could disagree with someone who says, no, Ricky, you're wrong. Michigan has more pressure than Penn State.
I think Michigan has a lot of pressure on them because of the fact that how good of a season that they were having. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, just things broke down at the end. Things just broke down. When the heat was turned up, I felt like Michigan wasn't able to take it on, And
they were cooking fine for the appetizers, and then by the time the kitchen got hotter, they couldn't keep up.
It's like you and I when we go out to eat. We were, starving when we got there. You forced me to order appetizers with you.
Love the appetizers.
I did it, and then I was full for the main meal, pissed because I couldn't finish it all. And like Michigan, they couldn't get to the finish line and get to the playoffs, and then ultimately win it all.
I'm going to take it one step further. Is it like a traditional Ricky meal of order the appetizer, which is probably something with starches, eat that, then order your burger with fries, which are starches, lay the foundation of starches, as I call it, where I eat all the fries.
It's been laid in the appetizers.
While taking the one bite of my burger. After the layer of starches has been laid, you go to take that second bite and you go, I'm kind of full. Could that have been it? Is that taking it to the next degree, or is that kind of where Michigan was? Did they just lay the foundation of starches when they didn't have to?
Oh yeah, no, that's probably true. And folks, I'll tell you what is. We're gonna have to do a video of Ricky Widmer when we're out eating with him one night. You're gonna have to be able to see then exactly what he's eating. And the foundation of starches is laid in all of the appetizers. He doesn't need any more fries.
Well,
but
unless it's we went out to eat Friday, me, Dave, and Sean. This is off topic. I won't say it. We got chicken quesadillas for our appetizer.
See, that could be the main meal.
But who ate 2 of the 4? Me, because Dave and Sean didn't want the 4th one. So I was like, of course I'll take.
Well, someone's got to be that guy. But anyways, getting back to it, is I think Michigan again. They won so many games early on in the season, middle of the season, and then towards the end, they just...
The Iowa game turned it.
It wasn't good for them at the end. It wasn't good for them at the end. And I'm not saying that, Iowa was some crap team, but they weren't...
No, I'm saying that loss flipped all momentum.
But that's also what I'm saying is that it was a game where if I would have looked at the schedule, I would have gone, they're going to beat Iowa.
Yeah.
They're not going to lose. This wasn't the Iowa that... was their 13-0 or 12-0 or whatever Iowa had gone. This wasn't that team. And I think Michigan was better than that, but clearly not. And they're definitely a team that I would say, like you said, as a team that's got to prove themselves for all the reasons that you gave. I think another team, Ricky, going back to the SEC.
Okay, where we were with Auburn.
Is LSU.
Okay.
And I think, Ed Orgeron comes in. He's bringing a new style of Ed Orgeron. But I think
you love doing your Ed Orgeron impressions.
But I think that what that also brings is fans, yes, I think they're happy. They're excited around Ed Orgeron. He's a new guy. He's bringing this new tough, just let's take it out in the backyard and work it out. But if they don't win right away, there's going to be what's going on. Because for so long, LSU football
had won. They were winners.
Won all the time.
And they were
up there as Alabama, LSU, Alabama, LSU, Alabama, LSU.
And that's exactly it. They were competing with Alabama enough to where they were in the national championship game with Alabama.
This LSU team needs to be competitive again. And you talk about, teams with quarterback situations. I feel like LSU is falling into that as well.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have Leonard Fournette there. That's okay, but you got a good young running back. And Darius Geis, I think that's how you say it. I'm not sure, but he's a guy who could be a star. He's a guy who you can lean on. And I think that's exciting, but where's your quarterback play going to lead you? And I think that they've got some other weapons. Their defense always seems to be pretty darn good. I mean, you look at Alabama this past year, and I think that they were pretty darn good. Didn't Alabama only win 10-0? Wasn't this the year Alabama just won 10-0 over LSU? I think it was. So I think that this is a team that still has a lot to prove, though, because they need to get back to winning. They need to get back to competing in the SEC and being at the top.
I'm going to actually take you over to the next team that I wanted to bring up. I'm going to take you to the ACC. And there were two that were kind of going through my head. I'll give you the one that I'm not going to bring up. I'm not going to go in detail, but I thought about. I almost thought about saying Louisville. Because like we talked about. Yeah, you got Lamar Action Jackson, but this is the year. You got the Heisman. Show us what you can do without Deshaun Watson there, with a Florida State team that I feel like they'll be better than last year, even though they lost Dalvin Cook. But the team I look at that needs to step up is Miami. Yeah. Year 2 of Mark Richt, where it's one of those things where were we expecting them to be ACC champions year 1 with Mark Richt? No. But I need to see improvement from Miami. And at the least, what I need to see is I need to see them overtake North Carolina, because North Carolina does not have Mitchell Trubisky anymore. They have Brandon Harris, who to me is a step down from Trubisky. They need to at least be able to overtake Carolina for number 2 in the Coastal Division, and then be that second team to challenge. I'm going to say challenge, because I still like Virginia Tech to win the Coastal at this point. They need to be able to be that second team that challenges Virginia Tech for the Coastal, because I think that if they are behind Carolina, it's a lost season for them, and they should have been better.
Let me give you one final team on my end, and that is Notre Dame and the Fighting Irish.
Didn't even think about them, and I should have.
This is a team that abso-frickin-lutely needs to get back to winning. What a pitiful excuse for a season they had this past year. Brian Kelly needs to get back to coaching and not blaming his players. He needs to take a long look at how they can make that team better. He needs to make sure that defense is in order, that they get off the bus this season, as opposed to staying on it and watching the offense not play well, and then the other team coming out and playing offense and them playing very well. I think that they need to just revamp. And Notre Dame, a team with a following like none other, with their own network, basically, which is NBC Sports.
Yeah.
Because they're on there every week. You can't be as bad as you were last season. Because if you are, Brian Kelly, you're out.
And that's the one thing I was going to ask you. Is he out this year, you think?
Yes, he is. If
Do you think he
can't
gets fired?
get it going, if he can't get it going this season, he's out, either of his own accord or he's fired.
Well, I want to ask you this. I want to take you into prediction mode. Do you see Notre Dame being good this year and him keeping the job, or bad and him losing it?
I don't know.
If you had to put your money on it, which one would you lean towards? Him doing good and keeping, or doing bad and losing?
With my luck, they'll probably be just good enough where they keep him.
But that's Brandon secretly saying, get the fuck out of town, Brian Kelly. But it's funny. You say they basically have their own network. The last team that I'm going to bring up has their own network. And
Tejas.
They were a team that was at the pinnacle with Mac Brown. I'm going to say the pinnacle before Alabama kind of went, whoop, we're at the pinnacle now. Back in the day, it was them and USC were the two most popular teams for me growing up. And it's Texas. I know you bring in Herman and you got a new outlook on the team, but year one needs to be a solid one for Herman. It needs to be solid only because, and like Charlie Strong didn't do a bad job. It was just so much promise early in the year and then nothing the rest of the year.
He's got a pretty good young quarterback to work with.
And it's one of those things where this is a tricky one because I expect Texas to be better than they were last year, but they need to come out and prove themselves. New head coach, like you said, young quarterback to work with. This team needs to come out firing, especially like they need to come out firing enough to show their fans that do not worry, we have a young quarterback. Oklahoma's losing theirs. Oklahoma State's losing theirs. Mason Rudolph, Baker Mayfield, bye-bye, see you in the NFL. We're going to have our guy next year. This has got to be the year where they show the promise. They show the promise, bam, and then next year's when they strike. That's what it needs to be for Texas in order for them. Like I said, they need to prove themselves, and that's a team I'm looking at. One team I want to give an honorable mention for because you brought them up when we were getting ready for this segment, Texas A&M. If they don't do well, Sumlin should be fired. Am I wrong?
I don't know. I don't necessarily know if he's done all that poorly lately. You know, I mean, they haven't been up there, but I don't think that there's necessarily anything that says, he's been so bad where he's got to be out.
Does the seat get a little hotter? Do we turn that flame up?
The seat would be hotter, but I don't think, in my opinion, that he's done anything so bad or they've had such a bad season where he needs to go.
I think it's one of those things where, ever since you lost Johnny Manziel, we haven't had that same kind of pop from an Aggie team, and we need to see that same kind of pop, even though you don't have a Johnny Manziel. I'm not saying the spectacular plays. I'm just saying win some more games and prove yourself a little bit. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know down below what you guys think, what teams need to prove themselves in all of college football for this season. But before we end the podcast, Brandon, it's time. We do it every single week. It is Swanee's Final Thoughts.
Well, this week I thought I would do something a little bit differently and throw it over to Ricky to see what his final thoughts were.
Okay, my final thoughts. What direction could I go in? Because it's one of those things where you're catching me off guard. You're catching me really off guard. I'm actually going to make my final thoughts this. In the draft team previews, our team need videos that we're doing, they just posted starting today as we recorded this on Monday. One of the guys that Dave mentioned in his, I can't remember what team it was, but he mentioned Chad Kelly. To me, in the NFL draft, Chad Kelly is going to be an interesting guy to look for because part of me is on the same page as Dave. If you get him late, like fourth, maybe third at the highest, but fourth, fifth round, you're getting a bargain. You get him in the sixth, that is like a Tom Brady bargain. Do not come after me. I'm not comparing him to Tom Brady. Just add the disclaimer that. But you're getting that kind of a bargain because I do think that there is something to work with Chad Kelly. The thing that's going to be interesting is how this injury, because he tweaked his wrist, sprained his wrist, I believe, at his pro day, how will that affect him and affect his draft stock coming into the NFL? And it's one of those things where maybe this injury could be a blessing in disguise for Chad Kelly because I think he is going to be, he has the potential, not year one like Dak did, but he has the potential to, and it all depends on where he falls as well, but he has the potential to go to a team, sit there, kind of work, and could develop into a solid starting quarterback. I'm not saying he's going to be a Super Bowl champion, not a Hall of Famer. I'm not going that far. I'm not drinking any kind of Kool-Aid like that, but I think that he can be a solid starter in the NFL. It's just going to be, I think it's going to be interesting to watch him through draft weekend and how does that injury, along with his last season in college football, how does that affect everything for his draft stock throughout the draft? So you threw it to me. I'm giving you my final thoughts this week. That was a unique twist in the Swannies' final thoughts game. I was not prepared for it, but I still think I nailed it out of the park.
I think you did a very nice job, and that's what happens when Swanee has no thoughts.
Yeah, he just throws them
He
over
just
to
throws it over to Ricky.
Throws it over to Ricky and sees what I've got to work with. But I want
Nice
to thank
job.
you guys
Nice
for checking out the podcast this week, either watching on YouTube or listening to us on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, or Stitcher. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. I'm at Ricky Widmer. Brandon is at Young_Swan19. Most Valuable Podcast is at Most Valuable Pod. Also, check out patreon.com/Most Valuable Podcast. Besides hitting the like and subscribe button, patreon.com, just that way to help us out a little bit more so that we can get cool things like the lapel mics, like the green screen, so we can better this product for you as we continue this journey to make better and better video and podcasts for you guys, our fans. But I want to thank you guys for watching yet again. And as always, have a good day, everybody. Well, thank you guys for checking out this video from the Primetime Podcast. If you want to check out more, click right over here. The video's right over here. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out.